Namaste, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Perfect. So today we are starting AC 103, and I'm the AC 103 has basically three main topics. There is client encounters, there is the doshas, and there is women's health. So I'm starting women's health today. Normally we do women's health somewhere in the middle. And then students sometimes they are, we get the feedback they didn't have time to study, or, it was a little bit too much. So we swapped it. We do the easy stuff in the middle and the end, and we do the hard stuff in the beginning so that you have an entire month or so or more to, review and revise the hard stuff. And the easy, you will get the easy part. So what we're starting today is talking about Ayurveda in women, health and wellness in women, specifically talking about, I'm going to talk about the menstrual cycle. And then the homework is you're going to watch a recording on postpartum depression and give your thoughts, what you've learned. That's a very, very easy presentation. It's called, I've given you a little assignment called journal entry. Watch this recording and tell us what you think. And then menopause we'll talk about in one of the next classes. So the classes for Tradoshas are happening on Thursday. Yeah. So is it exciting? Yay, we get to the interesting part. This is not foundation. This is a little bit more than that. But it is going to get a little bit overwhelming. I'm here. We will answer your questions. And remember, the classes are going on till the end of June, so you should post your questions on the forum. You should ask questions in class, and also you should do a lot of independent study. In July, there are no classes because, we are off, so you will get a lot of time to review. All right, I had made a little chart just to know where everybody's at. I was hoping there'd be a little bit more attendance than just three, but just three of you. Thursday class is only 1 to 1.5 hours long. It's not that long. Sunday classes are always longer. So name 4 hormones that regulate the female reproductive system. You can just send it to me privately, or you can just put it on the quiz. Or you know what? I will let you all unmute yourself also. Let me just quickly do that. Yeah, okay. Just one more, at least one more. One more? That's it? Is that the only 2 hormones women have? Testosterone is in men. Oh, the wrong share. Hang on. Whiteboard. All right. So we know 2 of them. So in a brain, basically we have, in the endocrine system, you have different glands that produce hormones. So in our brain, there is hypothalamus. It produces a hormone. It's GnRH. GnRH. What GnRH is called gonadotropin releasing hormone. And basically hormones are released directly into the bloodstream. That's how they work. So when this GnRH is now, it's circulating in the brain, and it thinks of it, it goes and knocks on another gland's door and says, you got to release these 2 other hormones so that the reproductive system can go on. So what it does is it basically asks pituitary gland to release 2 more hormones that are called, I'm writing this because it'll be easier to understand, FSH and LH. And I mean, I would like you to go back and read about it. I have certain resources I'll share with you. FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. So if you want to understand the menstrual cycle, you have to understand that, the oocyte is basically a raw cell, which is like an egg cell. It matures into a follicle. So this follicle stimulating hormone is responsible for that. And why we're talking about that in an Ayurveda class, this will all become clear. The other one is called ALH, or luteinizing hormone. Stimulating hormone. And stimulates and LH is luteinizing. And this is also produced by pituitary, and this basically triggers ovulation. So after 15 days of a period, a woman has ovulation. This one is responsible for ovulation, meaning that egg is actually, the woman is ovulating, and this is the best time for a woman to get pregnant, right? So we need to know our hormones before we understand the menstrual cycle. Now this LH produces two hormones that you just talked about. Now it's actually written estrogen. And there's a few varieties of estrogen that we're not going to go into. But then this LH is producing estrogen and progesterone. And when this, during ovulation, when the egg is not fertilized, there's something called corpus luteum, which has been produced, and it's kind of like a yellow liquidy thing. So it disintegrates, causing bleeding in period. And why does it disintegrate? Because the egg was not fertilized. And this causes bleeding, and you have your menstrual cycle. I don't know if this was the best. It'll all be clear. So, we want to know some of the top 4 hormones for female reproductive system, specifically for the menstrual cycle, are the GnRH, FSH, and LH. Hypothalamus, pituitary. Pituitary is so important. And this is why all the glands talk to each other. So when someone has a thyroid issue, sometimes a woman is not ovulating, or she's not having her period. So these are all connected. Yeah, let me save this for you. Is there any question regarding this? Any question? All right, no question. Okay. So now when we go and look at our women's cycle, this will make a lot more sense. All right. So we are doing menstrual cycle today, and postpartum is the homework, wherein you actually watch the recording and post your comments. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about Ayurveda and women. We'll talk about classifications of women and how the natural cycles of women take place: monthly cycle, the age cycle, the menopause, the perimenopause. Mostly, we are going to talk about physiology of menstruation and Ayurvedic perspective of menstruation. We are not going, we could talk a little bit about that, but this is kind of the focus for today. I had written an article some time ago in some journal, in some peer-reviewed journal, and the first line of it said that women have been worshipped since Paleolithic times. I was talking about women goddesses. So in cultures across, pretty much going back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, Paleolithic times. In fact, if you think about a Mother Earth, she's a mother, she's a female, So uh, in, in a Vedic sense, Mother Earth is a Shakti. Do you know what Shakti means? Shakti is power. So because you're part of that cosmic Shakti, so we are embodiments of that creative cosmic Shakti. And we have something that is very unique to us. We were meant to be creators and mothers. And, it doesn't mean if someone hasn't had a baby that she's not a creator, meaning she has the creative ability to give love and create. And the word stri itself, which is the Hindi or Sanskrit word for woman, means one who can carry basically a child in her womb, right? And so they're representation of Mother Nature. I mean, one thing that I tell women who are imbalanced is I ask them to take their shoes off and walk on grass, and I ask them to worship Lakshmi or Saraswati, or any kind of Shakti or female goddess. And there are many women who have relationship issues with their own mothers. It's like it's a woman thing, or mothers who have relationship issues with the girls. And I'll tell them to worship, Shakti, Durga, or Parvati, Mother Mary, whosoever. So this kind of brings that energy. If nothing else, just worship Mother Earth. So the aim and objective of all of this, where I'm leading up to, is that Mother Earth herself she's female. I mean, if you've been looking at all the lava spewing out of Hawaii, all those images, it feels like she's upset, she's angry. You just can't think. I mean, I see Earth as a living, breathing creature. And, when I go gardening, I mean, I see her like that. I don't know if everybody sees it like that, but we are part and parcel of that, And if you look at Mother Earth, so we are part and parcel of that Mother Nature's energy. So we have the same cycle that she has. And what are her cycles? So her cycles are, because of the Earth's rotation, there is a 9-day cycle. Just yesterday, my 4-year-old was asking, why is there night and day? And I was trying to explain to him Earth going around its axis. It was funny. Earth is like a ball that moves and things like that. But it produces the night and day cycles. There is also a moon cycle. In fact, in the Vedic calendar, we follow a calendar, not the Gregorian calendar with 365 days. That's a sun. We follow a panchangam, which is, we follow the waxing and waning of the moon. For example, Purnima is full moon, and or Amavasya is no moon. And then the day after Purnima or Amavasya is usually the first day of the month. That is a moon cycle. And all Hindus, Ayurveda, we follow, it is called Tithi. So let me just write that down. Tithi. Oops. Tithi is when there's a date that starts from the first day of the moon to the 15th day of the moon to the last day of the moon, follows the cycle of the moon. For example, Purnima I said because it's famous, everybody knows what Purnima is, full moon. But there's also Ekadashi. A lot of people follow Ekadashi fast, which is the 11th day of the moon, both in the waxing and the waning, which is like tomorrow is Ekadashi, today is Dashmi, today is the 10th day of the moon. And so there are different cycles. And for an Ayurveda practitioner, it's very important because a lot of therapies and treatments are based on the tithi and the cycle. For example, if you're trying to increase something, you want to start it on, as the moon is moving towards full moon. If you want to decrease something, you want to start it as the moon is moving towards, it's becoming less and it's moving towards Amavasya. Earth also has a solar cycle. And she has a cycle of season. If you look at the trees, there's the age. We also have that cycle. We age, we mature, we hit puberty, we have a monthly cycle, we have perimenopause, then we have menopause, then we have post-menopause. And then we have the dosha time cycles of the day. Well, think about it. So Mother Earth has night and day cycles, and we also have night and day cycles, right? The dinacharya and ratri charya that we did in AC 101. The Mother Earth is moon cycle, and we have our mensuration. Think about it, 28, 30 days exactly follows the moon. I mean, it's, for some people, it comes a little early, but most of the time, there's 15 days of waxing and waning moon, and there's 15 days of ovulation. The ovarian cycle is 15 and 15. Isn't that amazing? So sometimes people call their monthly cycle, just to make it sound nice, they will say, I'm on my moon cycle. That means they have their period. And of course, there's the solar cycle, decides the dinacharya in us. The cycle of the seasons basically changes our doshas, right? So for women, our doshas are changing every single month. So for men, that does not happen. For women, for example, if I have a woman, if she's on her period or the first day of a period, and then she comes to me, and she says, I want you to check my nadi, I can, because she's on her first day of period and her pitta is going to be high. If she's in PMS, her vata is going to be high. And after after her periods are done, her kapha is going to start going high. So the monthly cycle, kapha, pitta, vata are going high and low depending on what hormone is circulating in the blood and what kind of activity it is doing on the uterus will change and affect the dosha of the woman every single month. Okay, any questions? So women are classified as vat, pitta, or kapha. We know that, all right? Then we are also classified according to her age. So before a menstrual period, in India, a girl who hasn't had her menstrual period, we actually worship them. So we get girls, there's a Shakti thing that happens. Oh my God, my mom used to do that. So she would do this whole thing before you get girls who haven't got their period yet, and they worship and they call Mother Earth and different goddesses to come and sit in the body of the little girls. And then little girls get all these gifts. So I used to love it. And then, of course, when after got my period, I wasn't allowed to be part of the puja and the ceremony anymore. I'm like, that's not fair. But it's a beautiful ceremony. And so, when the woman gets her first period, when a girl gets her first period, it's called menarche. In this country, it's happening early and early. Like in my time, 12, 13, even 14 was normal. Now it is 9 and 10. Even 8 is more normal. That's crazy. I think it's all those hormone induced milk people drink, and they're eating chicken or meat that has been pumped with hormones. So that is affecting, and of course the images in the television, kids have access to all these sexual images, so they're becoming, girls are developing. I saw a girl, oh my God, I saw a third grader with breasts, second grader with breasts, and my eyes popped out. I'm like, wow, this is, what are we doing, what are we doing? And when I have a mother who's like, I have a mom who's bringing her kid tomorrow morning, actually. Usually it's always about they're either not getting the periods at all, or they're getting heavy duty periods, and acne and whatnot. And my first question is the diet. Is it, are you eating food that has been pumped with hormones or not? So uh, women and hormones, you can't separate them. Then for women, the spiritual life is very important. um, that kind of goes against I mean, I'm a working person. I actually have two jobs, not one. I have my practice and this, but I work from home most of the time. My office is home. Otherwise, I couldn't have a spiritual life. I tried having a clinic, for example, and I've seen this in other people. If you're running around and you have a corporate job, you can't just have it all. It doesn't work that, look, she has it all. She has a family and a career. It doesn't work like that. If you want to have a spiritual life and home life, then you have to draw the line somewhere. And I really believe some women, that spiritual life, whatever form it may be, a person does yoga or does volunteer work or goes to church, whatever it may be, there has to be this balance. And of course, this balance needs to be in men too. But I really believe men, basically, they're programmed by nature to work, and they won't have a crisis if they don't have a spiritual life. But women will end up having a crisis if that happens. Then, of course, you've talked about sattva, tamas, rajas, sattva being peace, tamas being ignorance and hanging on to things from past, and Rajas is more aggressive state. Any questions? This is a chart this was done by Dr. Celia. She graduated as Ayurveda practitioner when we used to be San Diego College in California. And she was a professor at UC, University of California. So she just kind of went overboard. And she is classic Pitta. So it's a fantastic thing. We kind of did it together. But it doesn't mean that Vatas must be athletes and creative. It's not, these are kind of like just, textbook definitions out there. You could always be a combination of, some from here, and some from here. Does that make sense? It is actually, in this day and age, it is hard to find, textbook Vata or textbook Pitta or textbook Kapha. It is hard. So you will see, so when I give you forms to do, you'll say, oh my God, I fit maybe 5 points here and 3 points here and 10 points here. So that's how it is actually. That's exactly how it works. So athletes in creative, middle and size. So this is kind of, you know this already. What I want to talk about is the women issues. Let's look at the dryness. I mean, the skin. Dry hair, vaginal dryness. And what happens when there's vaginal dryness? They will also have a hard time. Libido is affected. If there's not moisture in the body, the libido goes down. And even with menopausal women, you'll see their constipation. And then, of course, just around the PMS, when the PMS hits, that's a Vata time, then they get really cold. And then their menstruation tends to be, because what is the quality of Vata? Vata quality is, anybody? It is, any quality of Vata you want to give me? One quality. Yes, Rabia, that's what I was looking at. No, dryness would be the quality, not the skin. Yes, dryness would be definitely a quality, Ruksha. So the lightness of Vata, so just before they hit their PMS and they get their periods are light. The blood itself, the bleeding is less, the periods are light. And that's normal for them. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. That's Pitta, the periods are heavy. And they get sharp pains. See, sharp, heavy. Kaphas are kind of moderate, but they get excessive fluid retention, water during this time. And their breasts may be tender. Are you seeing? What Vatas will feel, they'll feel a little anxious and spaced out when they get their period or just before they're about. So this is not a good time for them to go for a 3-hour run. This is a time to do restorative yoga just before they're getting their period. Once the period is finished, they can go back and do their heavy duty exercise. So if you look at, let me get the spotlight here. So this anxiety, mood swings, worry, you will see in the PMS, premenstrual, in Vata person. In Pitta, you will see, oh my God, they feel hot, they are worrying, they get angry at the world. This is part of their Pitta PMS. And of course, we're talking about textbook cases. It is possible we are not all textbooks, right? And Kaphas will immediately, they'll have, breast will swell up, there'll be fluid retention, and they'll feel heavy and slow just before they start their period. Right? So this is all the PMS in, and let's see, if you look at, it has not been given. All right, so periods are heavy, periods are light, periods are kind of moderate. The time, so periods only last for maybe 3 days or more. Here, Believe it or not, there are pittas out there, their periods can last for 7 to 9 days. Oh my God. And they happen every 22 days, and that's normal for them. And then what happens? Pitta also get like sometimes they get an acne or a skin breakout during the, Bhrajat Pitta, just before that. And of course, Kapha, like I said, it's moderate, more like 5 days. Everything's become slow and heavy and bloating. But in real life, we could be a combination of all these three. So what happens is in the next month, I give you a women's support form. I think Dr. Aparna does it with you, or and then you fill out the women's support form for yourself. We don't want the form back. We just want to know that you filled it out, and we talk about the issues, right? So this is a really good slide, print it out and get the data off it, and have it around and read it 5 or 6 times, watch the recording again, because sorry about that. So here's a few things that we have given what can be done. You want me to save this? Okay. Now, classification of women by age. So birth to puberty, it is not balaya, it's balya. Balya. Sorry, balya. So puberty, of course, if the puberty, the child is hitting puberty earlier than 13 years, which a lot of girls do now. And that's balya, ruled by kapha, because at this time, body is developing, breasts are developing, muscles are developing. So kapha is related with nutrition, bodybuilding, development of physical, emotional, rapid internal growth of brain. And of course, ovaries are maturing and uterus gets bigger. Of course, girls are born with a set number of eggs. When they are born, the eggs are just there, but they're in these very small, like oocyte, and they mature every month. And one egg comes from like left ovary in 1 month and right ovary in the other month. I don't know if you guys can feel it. I can. I know which ovary is releasing every month. If you really connect it to your body, you know. And then I won't sleep on that side. Then Yuvati is pretty much once a woman gets a period, approximately, and this is an approximate 40 years of age. They say, and believe it or not, and I'm eating crow. I was an Indian and I used to say, 40 years doesn't mean you have become old. I'm sorry, it does not mean that. I used to get upset at all these Ayurvedic acharyas. Why are they talking that what is wrong with 40? So when I hit 40, I was like, I'm in my prime. I was doing yoga. I was doing my Odissi dance. I was very healthy. And then I had a baby at 41. And then everything went downhill from there. And I finally understand why they say, because the inner reserves of prana have become reduced at that age, especially for a woman. So if I hadn't had a baby, maybe because I'm kapha, I would have survived. But oh my God, I lost half my hair. But anyway, so I eat crow and I give my obeisances to Ayurvedic acharyas, and I totally understand. God made me understand that it's 40 years is old to have a baby. So the idea is our mind. Think about it. This is the time from a teenage to around 40 is when we are going to have children, we're going to have a career, we're going to buy a house. This is when we make all the progress. And then starting 40 to 50 is called praudha, or middle age, because this is when the body is going to prepare for menopause. 5 years. Obviously, by using Ayurveda, you can delay the menopause process. Vriddha, 50 years and above. Vriddha actually means old or elderly, but they are not talking about that you look elderly or whatever. They're talking about the body is preparing for old age. And this is kapha time. Kapha time. This is pitta time. So this is kapha age, 0 to 13 years. 13 to approximately 40 is, I know women who had the cessation of their menstrual cycle at 44 or 45 or even 43. In fact, yes, I remember I had a friend and a client. She was English, and she was classic Vata. She's always telling me for years and years, why do we get our periods? I don't like my periods. I don't like it. And then she just stopped. 42, and then she became menopausal. I'm like you, because you keep on telling Mother Earth to stop your period. She stopped it. She challenged Mother Earth, and she just, ooh, because for women, when we say things like, I don't want, oh, periods are a problem, they give me, so that'll cause a problem. Periods are something that is a cleansing process that has been given by Mother Nature to us, because we get so many blessings. So this is one thing we have to go through. And it's a beautiful, beautiful way of cleansing and rejuvenating every single month. We just need to change the way we think. What I hate the most is, if you see the ads for, tampons or whatever on TV, it's all about, if you wear this tampon or you whatever, you can go you can go and run a marathon. And Dr. Aparna was, I think in one of her classes last year, she was saying that there was this woman who ran a marathon and she had her period. And to show a statement of being a feminist, she wasn't wearing a pad. So she was bleeding the whole time in a 5K marathon. So go figure. That is not our Ayurvedic viewpoint. So Dr. Aparna was horrified, and she was talking about it in the class. It's a very funny recording. You should watch it. All right, so let's look at Ayurvedic therapy. So the idea is the women's monthly cycle is a natural cycle given to us by divine and God to cleanse ourselves. So what happens, as women, we tend to be more psychic. We have more psychic energy. We tend to take other people's, like I call it the sticker Shakti. Because everything sticks. I'll hear two women talking about, I have nothing to do with them in my son's school. You hear something, everything affects you. There's this shooting that happened in Texas, the Santa Fe. I mean, I was sick for 2 days, just, I was sick. I felt sick. Then I had to go pray for those kids and people who died. I mean, we kind of attract, and then we have friends, and then our friends talk to us, and then we talk to her. Do you know what I'm saying? We help community, and then we also take on people's problems, and because we are the caregivers, we give love, we give healing, we give community, we stand together. But we also need to cleanse ourselves. So all that energy that we get, and especially, you're studying to be a healer, and for example, someone comes, you take their nadi, they'll leave their disease on you, trust me. They leave all that bad energy and they go and they feel very good, and you're sitting there. So I mean, I have to bathe every time I do a nadi with someone. I go home and bathe. Otherwise, I'm getting all their symptoms. I can feel it. So the moral of the story is that the monthly cycle is a beautiful thing, and it's God's way of cleansing us mentally, physically, and spiritually. Yes, it is an inconvenience, but it doesn't have to be that bad. It absolutely doesn't. Ayurveda is wonderful for monthly cycle. It is wonderful for women diseases. So idea, like I talked about the spiritual life, the diet is very important, and resting and mundane activities during menstrual cycle. There's some like gentle yoga poses that are actually pretty good and should be done. But not going for a big yoga class or running, or this is a time to kind of restore your spirit and mind and body. Another thing I'm going to mention Dr. Aparna here, because she always does this class, but I think her daughter's graduating, so she couldn't do the class today. So I'm going to mention what she says. So she's an osteopathic physician, and there was a leader in osteopathic physician. I don't know if she's Dr. Ruth or something. I can't remember her name on the top of my head. So she gave this idea that she suggested in the osteopathic community that the menstrual blood is actually a very healing blood because it does not have any clotting factor. So what happens elsewhere in the body, even if you have a little bit of cut and the blood starts flowing, immediately there's like a coagulation, and if you get a scab, right? That's what the blood has, because the body is programmed not to let the blood out. Otherwise, because, that's what keeps us alive. It's sustenance, it's life. But the menstrual blood doesn't have a clotting factor. It's not coagulating. It's not becoming a scab or anything. It's just flowing out. So all the stuff in the, the unfertilized egg, so what body is doing is all the nonsense that is in a uterus and body, it's dumping all of that in that menstrual blood. And so when that menstrual blood is coming out, it is cleansing our uterus, our body. It's almost like a bloodletting. And this is a scientific opinion. This is not me. This was suggested by a famous physician. So, I mean, of course, once a woman has had a baby, sometimes the menstrual blood is coming out for weeks. You know, uh, I mean, 40 days is given normally. Of course, if a woman has had a C-section done, then 7-8 days of bleeding is done. But if a woman has had a regular vaginal birth, she may be bleeding after giving birth for easy a month or so, because of, after all that stuff that is built up is getting bloodletted out. So imagine we get a chance to get rid of nonsense naturally every single month. So that's absolutely fantastic. I'm saving all of these things for you so I can share them with you. So look at these herbs right here. Let's I really do not have the time to explain the herbs, but I'll quickly go through them. I've also write ashwagandha here, actually. Shatavari for Vata Pitta person. Shatavari should be avoided for Kapha person. Everything else is great for turmeric, fenugreek, punanava, rose jam can be given to everybody. Ashwagandha for Vata Kapha and Ashoka for Pitta. Okay? What Ashoka does is, usually Pittas tend to have very heavy duty bleeding, and sometimes they're bleeding for a long time. Sometimes even Kapha women, yes, actually it can be given to Kapha too. Kapha women also sometimes produce too much estrogen, and if there's too much estrogen, they are bleeding, there's uterine bleeding for a long time. So what Ashoka does is what we call in Sanskrit stambhanam. It stops the uterine bleeding. So Ashoka stops the bleeding. That means if someone doesn't, it's kind of important herb for extra heavy duty bleeding, or so it kind of cleanses and stops. Shatavari, if a woman is not getting her period, or she's weak, or she has low energy, or let me do this. Shatavari literally means a woman who can have 100 sons, to increase fertility, to increase estrogen, to increase, it'll bring about periods if they have stopped. Turmeric will cleanse the uterus, and by itself it doesn't work. It has to be either given with ashwagandha or shatavari. Fenugreek will again will clean the uterus. It will stimulate, um, um, milk in a postpartum woman. Punarnava, excellent. It's not Purnahavara. There's a spelling mistake. Let me write that down. For Pitta Kapha, it not only is a cleanser for the uterus and the reproductive system, but it also helps both Pitta Kapha. Kapha, it reduces excessive edema and swelling, and Pitta, it helps the liver also. So these I've given you. Rose is cooling. So I'm not going to talk about asanas right now. Any questions before I go to the next slide? Or are you still just absorbing this all? Any questions? All right. No questions, then I'll move on to the next slide. Okay. Absorbing. Okay. All right. The moon and the lunar cycle. The moon and its position in the sky hold a powerful presence that affect our daily existence on Earth. Moon is quite fantastic. I mean, if you look at these bottom 4 points, did you know the moon actually controls the volcanic tides? Moon controls the volcanic tides. That means the volcano will erupt based on the cycle of the moon. Of course, it also will control the oceanic tides. So the flow of tides basically helps life on Earth, right? Moon also affects the germination of seeds and plant growth. In fact, the rasa, the taste of a fruit, comes from the light of the moon. So sun gives, like photosynthesis, sun gives life, moon gives taste, rasa. So the energy of the moon is called soma. And, people will harvest in full moon. That time, the sap and the nutrition in whatever is harvested is the highest. And then certain therapies are more therapeutic when done on different phases of the moon. I already talked about it. If someone wants to detox, we want to do it on, in the cycle of the moon where the moon is decreasing, right, towards Amavasya. If we want to do, gain weight or gain rasadhatu or nourishing therapies, we want to start where things are increasing, right? So we use that tithi. And moon totally affects the menstrual cycle. And I am pretty sure they say it's a old wives' tale, but on a full moon, many women who are due to give birth, maybe even a week or 2 weeks after full moon, their water will break on a full moon. So now those hormones that we talked about will make sense. So there's basically 2 cycles we need to understand. There's the ovarian cycle. This is the changes in the follicles of the ovary. And then, of course, you have the uterine cycle and the endometrial lining of the uterus. The whole, like I said, there's all these hormones being dumped in the blood. And the endometrial lining of the uterus is changing the entire month. The follicles are maturing, and then, of course, they don't get fertilized and they're getting thrown out every month. And this is affecting our mood and life. Every single month this happens. So basically, in the ovarian cycle first, what happens? You had your periods. Now your periods are finished. Now the first day of when you absolutely have zero bleeding, right? So that would be the follicular phase. And oocyte is basically a raw cell from in the ovary, or you can just call it an egg cell. And a girl is born with millions. There's so many eggs, but they're all very tiny. And so one of them matures and develops. And remember, there was a hormone that helped develop. There was the GnRH in the hypothalamus that asked pituitary gland to produce 2 hormones. One was, which one? It started with F. There was a hormone that helps with this. Which one? We talked about it in the beginning of the class. It helps the maturing ovarian cycle. Come on, we did it in the beginning of the class. I'll give you a hint. It has follicle in the beginning of the word. No? No? Okay. Follicle stimulating hormone. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, is responsible for this development of the follicle cell. And when it is developed, that's when ovulation takes place. A woman is ready to release her egg, and this is when, then what happens in the next phase is now egg remains in the fallopian tube is like a suction structure. It sucks out. It's very amazing. It sucks out the egg, and it takes the egg a couple of days to reach the entry of the uterus. So once it kind of is in that entry of the uterus, it develops into something called corpus luteum. Now, which is kind of stuck to the wall of the uterine lining. And then what happens is, of course, there's no fertilization. So it disintegrates. And once it disintegrates, you have your menstruation. Again, menses have happened. Now, this phase, when the corpus luteum disintegrated and the menses happened, I mean, think of it as like a pitta stage. Things are bleeding, burning, and this proliferative phase, which there's development of, there's more estrogen, there's more development. This is more a kapha stage. When anything is in a growth phase, like children are growing, anything in a growth phase or a tissue is growing, it's always a kapha phase. Okay? Make sense? It'll probably make sense when you review it, watch a couple of videos, go on Khan Academy. I'm going to share one with you. I'll give you the link. Hang on. Let's see. Khan Academy has a nice one.
To be picked up by the fimbriae in pregnancy. Go through a maturation process. Ovaries are two
Can you hear him? Can you hear this? Yeah, okay.
Structures in a female's reproductive system that produce her eggs. Each month, her eggs go through a maturation process called the ovarian cycle. And that cycle creates a secondary oocyte that can be then fertilized by a sperm to result in a pregnancy. The ovarian cycle is also responsible for what we commonly know as the menstrual cycle. Basically, the primary oocytes that are destined to be ovulated will develop in the ovaries, complete meiosis 1 just before ovulation, and then they'll be ejected out of the ovary as a secondary oocyte to be picked up by the fimbriae and swept into the uterine tube to hope for fertilization. So let's start from the beginning. Inside the ovaries, eggs develop in structures called follicles, these purple circles here. And they start off as primordial follicles. And so what a follicle is, I'll just blow that up for you. It's one primary oocyte, so an egg cell, surrounded by a layer of cells called granulosa cells. And the granulosa cells develop and become more numerous as the follicle matures. Now the granulosa cells also secrete a few hormones. Estrogen, a little progesterone, and some inhibin. And we'll talk about the functions of those a little bit later on. So let's put a timeline on this. Now the ovarian cycle lasts 28 days. This is day 0 here at the primordial follicle. We're going counterclockwise. All the way over here, this is day 13. Here, where the secondary oocyte gets ejected, or ovulated, that's day 14. And then the rest of the time spent getting back to the primordial follicle stage are days 15 through 28. So now you have an idea of about how long this all takes. So you remember when we said to these, we know the copy number. So as we develop, one that eventually gets ovulated, because you only ovulate one egg.
I just wanted to, share the Khan Academy is a really, really good resource. And, we do not have the bandwidth to actually teach anatomy, but it would be it's a good idea to go through it. And of course, you can also, join a community college as well, because we expect that you should know these things. Because we want to focus on teaching the Ayurveda part. So we do a little bit of anatomy, and the rest we expect you to do yourself. Otherwise, you'll be lost. Yeah. But we won't be testing you on it. Only the practitioner students get tested on anatomy. So at least you just want to have the knowledge, and you're not getting tested on it. All right, let's get back to our. So again, you have the GnRH, gonadotropin, which is secreted by hypothalamus. That is kind of asking the anterior means the front pituitary, to secrete two hormones, FSH and LH. Then ovaries produced estrogen. Actually, it is the corpus luteum that produces the progesterone. But it doesn't matter who is producing what. But basically, all of these hormones are kind of important for the growth of the endometrial lining and then the sloughing off of that uterine lining. So these are very important hormones. Um, little my Indian accent just slipped through. uh, Now, what is endometrium? It is a sensitive organ. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to leave this. Let me go to the Ayurveda part, read through it, go to Khan Academy. There's some wonderful videos on YouTube. Um, that'll make sense then. Let's go to Ayurveda and the menstrual cycle. For girl, one of the things we talked about, sometimes I've seen girls that are younger, and so depending on how active their pitta is, the more active the pitta is, the earlier the periods will start. The menarche, the first bleeding, will happen earlier in a pitta girl. If a person is kapha, then it'll become a little later. So just a fun fact, 200 years ago, average age was 17 to get a period. Can you imagine? So day one of the menstrual cycle is light bleeding. Idea is don't do heavy activities. You can still do a light yoga class and everything. But once the bleeding becomes heavy, do not do any heavy duty exercise at all. Menstruation is very cleansing. It not only cleanses our body and our uterus, but it's also cleansing. So it's cleansing the uterus for conception and gestation. It is also cleansing the body. It is cleansing, like I said, it is removing ama. Ama is, you know, um, little molecules. Little toxic molecules. I mean, think free radicals. Metabolic waste, stuff in the blood that needs to be removed, is kind of dumped by the body there. The body knows, oh, this blood is going to be removed, so let me just dump my metabolic waste in there. And it also cleanses, emotionally as well. And it also is a spiritual cleansing too. So if a woman is on birth control, that means she's technically not getting um, a real period. So Ayurveda is, especially birth control pill, if a woman is on a long, long time, that means she doesn't get a period. It's a fake period. So that is not the period that we're talking about. We're talking about an actual period, because that fake period a woman gets when she's on birth control, there is no fertilized egg in that blood, right? Because the body doesn't produce an egg at that time. It's just a fake blood that happens because of the regulation of estrogen and progesterone, right? So we're talking about actual when a person is not on a birth cycle, birth control. So menstruation makes the uterus more fertilized. And when the egg is not fertilized, all of the waste products and more are carried out. It is important a person eat a low diet. This is not really a great time to go on a trip unless you have to. And if you are on a trip, at least eat like soups and things like that. Mung dal and things like that. Don't worry about these words. Rasadhatu Agni Artava Apana Poshak. You will learn this in AC 105, which is about 4 or 5 months away for you. So then it'll make more sense. We'll actually have a couple of more classes on menstrual cycle. And so the idea is these phases when the uterine lining is building up is called the kapha phase. And when just before the menstruation, it's the pitta phase. So causes of menstrual imbalances. Instead of going into all these, because I'm kind of running low on time, I want to talk about stress. Now, in when women are stressed, they when men are stressed, we both produce hormones. But in women, because men are kind of programmed to handle stress a little bit better than women. I mean, it's just how we are. Plus, they don't get periods, so that they don't have that extra pressure on them, right? So our lives are hectic, and when we are stressed out, and we have adrenaline and cortisol running through us, it basically kind of messes up our entire hormonal system. And when it, like I said, if you're if, for example, if a woman is stressed and her hypothalamus is stressed, if hypothalamus is stressed, then there's going to be, she might, like, the top cause for my young ladies that I get a lot of teenagers in 8th grade, 9th grade, whatever, and they don't get their periods, and their moms or sisters are dragging them to me. And the top thing that comes up, second is always diet, and the first is always stress, school work. And like, one girl's like, she was getting 4 hours of sleep because she had 9 hours of homework. I said, why do you have 9 hours of homework? She's like, I'm so tired when I come home. So I said, why can't you get up 4 in the morning and do it? Get at least 6, 7 hours of sleep before you do your homework. But I can't say, she was so obsessive compulsive. So I end up talking a lot about how to reduce stress and talking to parents about, do not stress your child. So stress hormones can cause insomnia, weight loss, thyroid issue, irregular menstrual cycles, infertility, miscarriages. Basically, for young girls, it can cause heavy bleeding or absolutely amenorrhea, which means there's no bleeding at all. It can cause hot flashes. It can cause a very severe PMS. Uh, I mean, there's actually a syndrome called PMDD. It's a premenstrual disease that women get so anxious that they're tearing their hair out, and they're like hitting things when they're in just before their periods. They get so stressed out. And then too much stimulants. That includes tea, coffee, alcohol. Poor nutrition always, emotions always, and toxicity also includes environmental and emotional toxicity, but just kind of keeping things inside. I mean, these are kind of self-explanatory ones. So premenstrual syndrome is, interesting. For everybody, it's different. So conventional medicine, it's of course related to fall of estrogen and progesterone. And Ayurveda, monthly cycle, especially the menstrual part, because the menstrual fluid itself is pitta. The fluid is pitta, and vata is pushing that blood, which is pitta, out. So we want to balance that, right? So during the PMS, vata may be too strong and push excess kapha, pitta, or vata into the uterus. So, right off the bat, I'm thinking legs up the wall, you know, legs up the wall, and very restorative. I wish they would do PMS yoga class. Somebody would start. I mean, if I didn't have a crazy, crazy, crazy job, I would do it totally, like a PMS. And I know they do postpartum, they do prenatal. Somebody needs to do PMS and restorative yoga for such women. If vata is not strong, that means if the blood is not getting pushed out, then body will start making cyst. This is not always the case, sometimes. And if pitta is too strong, too much blood is coming out. Is it making sense? I think I have basically inundated you with too much information. There's a lot more stuff here. I will do the next this part next time. Yeah, I think you've kind of like, what just happened? We just started. Too much? Should I stop and like let you digest, and I will, finish it off next week? Yeah? Is that okay? All right, just, before we end, um, tell me one thing that you've learned from this. Um, yeah, it's a lot of information. Yeah, let's have you digest it. Plus, like, 7 of you are absent. They're going to look at the recording and go, "What?" Yeah, so you don't want to scare them either. So tell me something that you have learned today about women and Ayurveda. Just one thing. Whatever comes on the top of your head. Moon cycle, that's beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Maria, what is your takeaway? Okay. The women are worshipped. That's really interesting that you caught on to that. Evelyn, what was your takeaway? Legs up the wall. So, it's interesting that you're talking about the moon cycle and how women are worshipped because we as women, we need to worship Shakti, all of us. Oh, God. Oh, you do a moon cycle. Yeah, that is another thing. I have never been able to do but I have had students who've taught me the moon salutations. But I'm not sure if the moon salutations are actually related to the moon. The moon salutation. I would from what when we were in India, we were taught moon salutations are the sun, same as sun salutation, but it's done to the moon at night. The reason being, the moon has the same light as the sunlight because it's the same light being reflected on the moon, right? So do you do moon salutations? Yeah, we never learned moon salutation. It was a new thing. So one of the chikitsas or one of the remedies for balancing all kind of women issues is worshiping Shakti, you know, doing things to balance the moon. For example, wearing pearls, uh, going for a going for a walk in the moonlight. Um, and I had a student, she was from Kripalu Yoga. She's awesome. She's French. She lives in France, and she taught me the moon salutation. And she said that actually moon salutation is awesome for women, and I do believe her. Uh, yeah. But then we learned, yes, left side. We learned that's the sun cycle, but you just do it in the evening, and yeah, you start on the left side. Yes. Yeah, and then there's a couple of yoga poses that Celia, she's also a yoga teacher, has put in that slideshow. And let me see if I can. Yeah, I was going to go on for another 15 minutes, but we're going to end early so you guys can digest. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. I hope I didn't scare you. This is how it goes. So, take this entire week. There's no class this weekend. Oh, thank you, Rabia. Thank you. I was scared. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to run away now? Yeah. So, quick, you go through the recording, go through the presentation, and, absorb it. And then post your questions on the forum. And I'll try and finish the rest of it in the next week. Okay. Well, have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Bye.